Best of r/malicious compliance episode 79. Subscribe for Reddit videos daily. Hello again. Big fan of this subreddit, and r/r/paterrevenge. Edit. It has been brought to my attention by several posters that this post may belong in r/paterrevenge. I wasn't sure if this belonged here, or in r/paterrevenge. I'm tagging it here, just in case. For context, I am currently a 37-year-old openly gay male. This took place in my early 20s. I was working for McDonald's at the time in the drive-thru. Loved that job. So, on one of my days off I went to a now defunct bathhouse in Portland, Oregon. A place where gay men go to passionately hug one another. Met a guy, let's call him Bruce. Bruce was charming, witty, cute, and all around fun to be around. We dated for about a week when I suggested he come on by and see me at my work sometime. It would have really brightened my day. He said sure, and I was happy. The morning he did show up, he had 3 other barely clothed twinks, a term for very skinny and thin, often feminine, gay men, sitting in his car. Given some of them were wearing towels from the bathhouse, it was clear he just picked them up from there. I ask how he's doing and he says that he's elated because not only had he passionately hugged all 3 men in the car, he was going to go back, for seconds. He had dropped by, hoping I could help him get some free food and drinks for his friends. This entitled butthole cheated on me, told me he was going to do it again, and then had the gall to come to my work and beg for free meals for himself and all his friends. I told him I couldn't do that even if I wanted to. That it was against company policy to give away food, but we're so hungry and thirsty. Please, can you hook us up with some free sodas on? Additional context. So I worked once with a pretty cool manager I'll call Darren. Darren was young like me, tattooed like me, and all in all a pretty cool dude. One thing about him though, was he was big into malicious compliance and would almost always maliciously comply with any request. You always had to be careful how you asked for things. Since I got free fountain drinks as an employee, I asked if he could get me a soda once. He knew I drank Sprite, but instead filled my cup with soda water. I spat it out and asked what the deal was. He said, "You asked for a soda. I got you a soda." Cue malicious compliance. Remembering how once my manager Darren had gotten me with the very same request, I grinned sweetly but evilly and said I'd get them 4 sodas and to pull forward, I rang 4 soda waters into the machine and queued it up. Darren asked me what was doing, and when I told him what was about to go down, he just grinned and told me to go for it. I handed out the soda waters to Bruce and his Brucettes, and he lifted the lid. Seeing the fizzling drink, he put the lid back on, kissed me on the cheek, and drove a little. I counted down in my head and almost right on schedule. The windows rolled down, and those dudes chucked the soda waters right into the parking lot and street. I laughed so hard. Bruce never came back, never called back. Couldn't have been happier. TLDR, boyfriend cheated on me, and Chusingburger/entitled begged for free sodas for himself and 3 other guys. Made him 4 soda waters instead. Edit/clarification. I didn't expect this post to go so viral. Anyway, I apologize if some of the details were left out, as sometimes when I tell stories details that don't seem that important to me are left out. Bruce and I had seen one another every day that week, and during those dates I discussed being exclusive. I told Bruce I really liked him and wanted to be monogamous while we dated. He had at the time expressed he was willing to comply and be exclusive to me and vice versa. Additionally, for those questioning the drive-through kiss, Bruce's car was very close to the window, and his car sat a little high, perhaps in comparison to others. It was very easy for me to just lean out and him to lean out. Thank you. Next. This is going to be short, but funny. I am a female, part-time paramedic for a private ambulance company. I don't have a set schedule and pretty much just fill a hole in the schedule once or twice a week while on my 4-day off from my main job to keep my skills up and have extra cash. The greatest thing about this is that I get to pick my schedule and the EMT I'm working with. Yesterday, I was working with an EMT I had worked with in the past. Let's call him Blaine. So Blaine and I are getting kicked around from post to post by dispatch, filling holes left while other units run calls. Blaine decides he's hungry and pulls into a Wendy's parking lot. I should mention here that the ambulance we were in yesterday is a giant, diesel behemoth. They're heavy, cumbersome, they have a huge patient compartment that I love, but they are a pain in the ass to drive in a cramped parking lot. Oh, and did I mention it was prime lunch hour? In a senior-dominated part of town? Yep, so the Wendy's is right at the edge of this parking lot and it's madness. People are trying to zip out of there and get back to work. The parking lot is nearly full, and we're trying to avoid making patients out of the elderly pedestrians who can't see or hear our elephant of an ambulance. I noticed that it would be easier to just go straight around the outside of the drive-thru and park outside of the Wendy's parking lot, but still within the shopping complex. I said, "Why don't you go around?" Blaine, who was a sassy black woman in another life, in contrast to his current nerdy, white self, says, "Why don't you just let me drive?" I love Blaine. He's got a point. He pushes the pedal and I push the drugs. He gets his food and we start heading towards the actual designated posting location, which is on the backside of the shopping center we're in. Now, Blaine is about to make a wrong turn headed towards the main street. You can get to the posting this way, but it's rough in an ambulance, with elderly drivers, and the public in general. And he did say that I should just let him drive. He makes a turn and is committed to his decision when he realizes his mistake and says as much in a colorful fashion. Amuse. "I wondered if you knew that." Blaine says, "Why didn't you tell me? You did tell me to just let you drive." We never made it to the posting. We were kicked out on a call before Blaine had to fight pedestrians and traffic to correct his error, and Blaine had to eat a cold cheeseburger after we dropped the patient off at a hospital with terrible offload times. The end. Thank you. Next. A couple of years ago, more than a couple, I guess, I worked for a then expanding restaurant chain. We had a very distinctive name for a restaurant, but it was just a noun, not someone's name or a made-up word. We'll call it Barnes for expediency. One weekend we had a pretty raucous party. Tons of pictures were taken, including some flashes from servers and bartenders. Everyone wanted copies of all the pictures, because 1. It was a hell of a party. 2. They thought I'd post the nudes, which were mild, but still NSFW. I edited all the pictures to either remove or hide the nudity. I went full, comical, black bars, including black barring stuff that wasn't offensive for comedic effect. I didn't want to post to social media, so I set up a do-it-yourself website GeoCities sort of thing. The URL was stupid long and complicated, as those tend to be. GeoCities. Whatever / random / second / barn party people / partypics. Seriously, the URL was unfathomable and unsearchable. The only way to get to the, now edited pictures, SFW, was to have the link. I shared the link and everything was fine. None of the people who'd flashed objected. I checked, and most of them said I didn't have to edit the photos. But it was funny. One stick in the mud, who'd been at the party for 5 minutes, saw the site and objected to the restaurant management. I got called into the office. The GM told me to take the page down. He'd been contacted by corporate. My job was threatened. When I mentioned free speech, etc., I was told that the issue was that I'd used the restaurant name in my link. Now, the restaurant name was a noun. They had a site that was basically the Barn family restaurant, but even their URL was lengthy because the noun they were using was pubic usage. Logic aside, my job was threatened. Okay, I edited the page. I took down all the images and left up a button with a clear "Do Not Click" logo. Clicking the button opened dozens of different hardcore porn sites. I never heard another word about it, but in my heart of hearts someone in corporate double-checked on the issue and now has to explain their browser history. Thank you. Next. This is my sister's story, but it's too good to not share. This was back when she was in 2nd grade, and this girl was the perfect child. I wish I was kidding, but number. You know that one kid with the halo and the sweet smile, the manners to make a parent proud, and cutesy little voice? Yep, that's her. But, she's a ginger, so she does have a mean streak when you push her. You would think that all the teachers loved her, right? Nope, not her 2nd grade teacher. This woman was hellfire personified, and she for some reason hated my little sister. More often than not, my little sister came out of that classroom trying to hold back tears. 2 more very important things about my sister. She has always had lips that would get so chapped they would bleed, and she always carries around Carmex with her. So, one day, she's sitting in class with Helle's favorite teacher when she pulls out her little tub of Carmex and the teacher immediately starts screeching at her to see her after class. End of class. And the teacher tells her that she must keep the Carmex with the school's office because it says medicated, and back in the day you had to be literally dying just for the office to give you your things. No joke. I'm asthmatic and it took almost dying on the office floor for them to hand my inhaler over, but that's another story. My sister tries to explain that without the Carmex her lips will bleed, but the woman does not care. Well, Helle hath no fury, little a sweet baby ginger scorned. Very next morning, she doesn't use any in the morning, doesn't use any for the ride to school, doesn't use it before sister hands the little tub of Carmex over to the office lady, who looks at her very confused but just does not give a shit, and she heads off to class. She does her best to keep calm when she starts to feel her lips get chapped, keeping her lips as drawn in and neutral as she can. She spends most of the day with her head down and not speaking, until finally the teacher calls on her to answer a math question. Now, I should probably warn everyone this might get a little graphic. Sister lifts her head up, looks this woman right in the eyes and smiles as wide as she can. Tears are rolling down her cheeks as she can feel her lips splitting open so badly that they're not just bleeding a little, it's rolling down her chin, mixing with her tears, down her neck and onto the collar of her shirt. This woman screamed so loudly that us third graders across the hall could hear it. She ended up ripping her lips so badly they had to page little third grade me to call my mom to pick her up, and she had to stay home for a couple of days to recover. When she came back, however, not only did the teacher personally hand her Carmex over, she had bought her a few more little tubs of the stuff for just in case she ever ran out and never bothered her again. I don't know if it was coincidence that year was the last year she taught, but a little part of me likes to think that she met her match in my little sister. Edit. I really didn't think I was going to have to add any of this, but here I am. My sister has tried every lip balm under the sun, has seen a doctor, ect. All other lip balms either never work or she has an allergic reaction to them. All medications, all products react to people differently. What works for you does not always work for someone else. I'm finding some of these comments rude and snide, and it's really all unnecessary. There's trying to be helpful, and then there's trying to be right. Please stop. The school itself didn't care that she had Carmex. Perhaps I should have elaborated on hands the little tub of Carmex over to the office lady, who looks at her very confused but just does not give a shit. The school never needed to hold onto the lip balm. This was purely the teacher, the Helle teacher that I keep referring to in a negative and nasty light to emphasize what kind of woman she was, on a power trip with my little sister. Next person I see remotely begin to defend the teacher. You're an asshole. Thank you. Next. Context. I have a weak stomach causing me to be in the bathroom for extended periods of time. This incident happened about 2 months ago in my literature class. I had just finished an exam when I started to get the shits. I got up from my desk and asked the teacher if I could use the restroom. She said yes and I headed down the wing to the restroom. I wasn't feeling too well and ended up spending 20-ish minutes on the toilet. Once I started to feel better I headed back to class. I walked in the classroom and my teacher began berating me about how I was skipping class, that C was going to get me ISS etc. I tried to explain myself but she wouldn't believe me unless I gave her evidence, so I ended up getting a week of after-school detention. Fast forward to yesterday, I again wasn't feeling well and asked to use the restroom. My teacher gave me a snarky response saying "You're not going to skip, are you?" I just ignored her and headed to the restroom. Once I got there I ended up releasing the floodgates, being stuck in the bathroom for about 30 minutes. Knowing if I went to class I would get chewed out, I took my phone out and took a photo of my creation. I head back to class and my teacher starts her rant about me skipping. I tell her I was in the restroom and again she doesn't believe me, so I pull my phone out showing her the photo. She was disgusted beyond belief, starting to gag, throwing up in her trash can. It got so bad that she ended up leaving early. Sadly though I did get in school suspension for it. Thank you. Next. Yes, I know the title's wrong. Blame autocorrect. Warning, not for the squeamish. Just be glad I don't have photos. So, when I was about 15, I developed ingrowing toenails on both of my big toes. My own damn fault for trimming them too close to the sides, but live and learn. Anyone who's had ingrowing toenails, or known someone with them, will know just how much they hurt. Especially when a bunch of cunts at school start thinking it's funny to accidentally tread/stamp on my feet. There aren't words to describe the pain, because your mind kind of shuts down for a moment. Which, if they're smart, gives a fuck knuckle responsible time to move. If not, well, it turns out that picking up a chair and hitting someone round the head with it, pro wrestling style, is a reflex action. One that will result with you having to sit down with your parents, across a table from your tutor teacher. I believe that the American equivalent is homeroom teacher, and your head of year, teacher responsible for your entire year group all the way through high school. Now, I did not get on with my head of year. She never really forgave me for not being the perfect student my older sister was, and well, I was certainly responsible for more than my fair share of the paperwork on her desk. So, you know, we had almost 5 years of mutual loathing between us at this point. So we're sat there, the hoy convinced that she finally has grounds to expel me. To his credit, my tutor was trying to be a bit more fair, holding the position that, while I overreacted, I had been the victim of bullying to begin with. My mother, who's in full mama bear mode, is trying to explain that I'm in pretty much constant pain, to the point where I had to sleep with my featuring poking out from under the sheets, but Hoyle was having none of it. To her, no amount of pain could possibly excuse what I'd done. Then my mum tells me to take my shoes and socks off, and this is where my compliance becomes malicious, because I also took off the dressing that were covering my toes. Dressings that were there because my toes had become infected, and I was on some pretty strong antibiotics at the time. They did not look good. I won't describe them in any detail, because I'm sure Reddit probably has rules about that kind of thing. Let's just say that my hoy turned an interesting shade of green and looked ready to bring back up everything she'd eaten in the previous 24 hours. My tutor, not so much, but he was Irish, therefore made of stunner stuff. Hoy bids me to put the dressings back on, not able to even look at me. Mum asks her if they looked painful enough to her. Meeting ended very quickly. Now school rule was announced the next day. Anyone who even accidentally trod on or in any way hurt the feet of someone with ingrowing toenails got an automatic 2 days suspension and had their ass chewed off by the hoy. The look on her face as she announced this made it clear that, not only was she not joking, but was actively looking for someone to make an example out of. Couple of weeks after my GCSEs, I had my toenails removed. They had to kill off the nail beds, so they won't ever grow back. Got a couple of interesting scares, but they're only visible if I'm wearing sandals. So, yeah, be careful cutting you toenails. Thank you. Next. So this is a minor story, but it still tickles me 10 years later, so hopefully someone else enjoys this. In middle school, there was a system where every month, in each class subject, students would have to write an essay on a given prompt. Even math classes. We wrote about 5 essays a month. I like to write, and did so often in my spare time. I did not like writing stupid 3-page essays along the lines of what is your morning routine, and talk about your favorite foods. These essays were kind of killing my passion for writing. Now that I'm older, I think they gave us easier prompts to help boost their stats. Easy essay equals more A's, but at the time it was just tedious. I asked my social studies teacher if we could get more interesting prompts, and he told me that he has to pick the prompts from a list the school provided, and he was trying his best to find interesting ones. He suggested trying to make it as interesting as possible for myself, but that I had to answer the prompt. Oh, I'll answer the prompts all right. Our next essay was to write a short story with the following instructions. Sergio is looking forward to a fun-filled summer vacation, until something unexpected changes his plans. Man, I wish I still had the story I wrote, because it was beautiful. I wrote a story from the perspective of Sergio's mother. She was sitting on the curb outside of her house, police all around her, and Sergio lay dead in the street. He had been struck by a drunk driver. I'm telling you, it was dark. If I were to write it again today, I think I'd make the mom his killer for some added splash. But honestly, it's probably a good thing I hadn't written that in 8th grade. I'd probably have landed myself in counseling. My teacher gave me an A for the assignment, because I followed the prompt and wrote well. Nothing changed, but at least I got a little thrill from my malicious compliance.